This video is possible thanks to contributions to the Existence University Patreon by viewers like you. Thank you. The Objectivist Ethics, a detailing of Ayn Rand's essay. The Objectivist Ethics is a speech written and read by the philosopher Ayn Rand. The speech was added as an essay in the book The Virtues of Selfishness, also by Ayn Rand. This essay lays out the basic foundations of the Objectivist Ethics, hence that pretty clear and concise title. The essay itself, without regard to length per paragraph, which is drastically different at times, consists of 106 paragraphs. All 106 paragraphs are available for free on the Ayn Rand Institute's website, and you are encouraged, at some point, to go and read or listen to the full speech. This detailing of Ayn Rand's essay will only cover a fraction of 1/5 of the essay, having reduced the whole essay down to 22 paragraphs, and having reduced that down to the key aspects, which are usually quoted lines or passages. Otherwise, this presentation will give you no sense or feeling or purpose as the original work. So again, I do advise you refer to the original to learn about that particular speech. This video is specifically using the keynotes of that speech to detail the philosophical Objectivist Ethics, not a detailing of the grammar or imagery of the speech of the Objectivist Ethics. To begin, from paragraph 5. What is morality or ethics? It is a code of values to guide man's choices and actions. The choices and actions that determine the purpose and the course of his life. Ethics, as a science, deals with discovering and defining such a code. There's nothing to detail here. This is the thesis that we will be expanding upon. But let us examine the words for a brief second. Morality is a code. Pause. A code? People like to codify rules. That's what makes it a rule. Codify means to organize or arrange systemically. Let's continue. So morality is a thing people do where they organize into a system that works for them, a set of some kind of standing order, a loose or strict or anything in between set of guidelines to help them in their day-to-day lives, to make the kind of choices and actions which they will have to think about and live with for the rest of their lives. From paragraph 16, what are values? Why does man need them? This keynote is important in the sense that it is this moment of reflection that is unique to Ayn Rand compared to other philosophers. Value is such a basic human experience that it actually is more difficult to discover as a concept than it is to understand and use it. Plants, to the extent that a plant can be said to know reality, knows too its values and acts to gain and keep it. It moves its roots towards water and nutrients in the soil, moving its leaves into the sunlight. But it cannot even feel soil or sun. It just chemically converts and grows without a thought about values. Likewise, animals like dogs and cats perceive a world of objects, and they too experience values. And in the form that they can be said to understand the world, they understand their values. Humans are just another form of animal, mind you, with a different form of consciousness, but an animal nonetheless. And they too experience and understand the values in their life. From paragraph 17. Value is that which one acts to gain and or keep. The concept value is not a primary. It presupposes an answer to the question, of value to whom and for what. To provide a clear example, Rand writes in paragraph 19, to make this point fully clear, try to imagine an immortal, indestructible robot, an entity which moves and acts, but which cannot be affected by anything, which cannot be changed in any respect, which cannot be damaged, injured, or destroyed. Such an entity would not be able to have any values. It would have nothing to gain or to lose. It could not regard anything as for or against it, as serving or threatening its welfare, as fulfilling or frustrating its interests. It could have no interests and no goals. I have extended this argument when I came to defend Craig Biddle in my shorts about Alex O'Connor's immortality pill. The example being that if you were to essentially become this immortal robot, you would have no parts of you that can die, which means that no parts of you need to be exchanged for new material, which means you never have to eat, or drink water, or go to the bathroom, or breathe, which means none of your cells are working, because they only work by a process of chemical exchange, which means you're not alive. And further, you would not be able to move a muscle, because muscle contraction requires oxygen and carbon dioxide exchanges, which is why your yogi keeps reminding you to breathe. From paragraph 20. Only a living entity can have goals, or can originate them. And it is only an organism that has the capacity for self-generated, goal-directed action. Literally, every cell in your body is an individual that uses your DNA, with its same protein construction manual. However, not all the cells share the same morphology. If you stop to think about it, you, the mind that exists with this body, you do not have any DNA yourself. You are composed of various morphologies which act together for their own benefit to construct you, so that you can more easily feed them. Your stomach tells you when it's time to eat, not the other way around. Your lungs tell you when it's time to replenish the members of you with combustible gas, not the other way around. Your heart tells you when you need to deliver that combustible gas to all of the members of you, not the other way around. Sure, you can mentally take control of some of these to some degree or another, but if you were actually in full control, you would not survive long. When you starve yourself, or you hold your breath, or you try to stop your own heart from beating, your body will scream at you in the only way it knows how. This is a group effort, and you need to treat it as such. This is the difference between you and a statue of you. You are made of life. A perfect replica statue of you is made of stone. You are not value-driven because you are made of chemicals. You are value-driven because you are made of value-driven entities. And what you and those entities that make you up share as a common factor is that you can lose that form of existence. Your life, your cells' lives, can go out of existence. A statue's cells cannot. Rand states the above in the paragraphs 22 and 23. 22. An organism's life depends on two factors: the material or fuel which it needs from the outside, from its physical background, and the action of its own body, the action of using that fuel properly. What standard determines what is proper in this context? The standard is the organism's life, or that which is required for the organism's survival. In paragraph 23, in a fundamental sense, stillness is the antithesis of life. Life can be kept in existence only by a constant process of self-sustaining action. The goal of that action, the ultimate value, which to be kept must be gained through its every moment, is the organism's life. I want to reiterate that this organism she speaks of can apply both to the creature with a liver, and the entity that is the liver, and the entity that is a liver cell. Each layer that exists as its own organism has such a basic living existence. Hence how organs get both their names and how they can be exchanged to another person. The liver can be said to be its own living entity that works with other living entities, organs of the body. And like neighbors in your neighborhood, some can be exchanged each month, some can't be removed without ruining the whole vibe. What does this have to do with ethics, you ask? Rand reminds the audience, on paragraph 24, that this is in fact all about ethics when she states, "An organism's life is the standard of value. That which furthers its life is the good, and that which threatens it is the evil." So here we can see then that the objectivist ethics is based on the independent, individual entity as a biological creature that has physical requirements in order to continue its existence as a biological entity, as compared to the alternative of being or not being an entity composed of chemicals. What is the baseline of understanding such a standard of values? According to Rand in paragraph 29, the pleasure-pain mechanism of the body of man, and in the body of all living organisms that possess the faculty of consciousness, serves as an automatic guardian of the organism's life. The physical sensation of pleasure is a signal indicating that the organism is pursuing the right course of action. I would just like to add, given the nature of some people who like to look for counterexamples in biology, as if that was as applicable as it is in logic to deny a rule, if one went seeking a plant or animal or fungi or protoplasm that used pain to signal the right course of action, you would first have no means of proving that they experience it as pain, no matter how similar the electrogram measuring devices are to registering a human pain. And second, even if it were the case, it would be an exception that proves the rule. But either way, the purpose of the pleasure-pain mechanism would be the same, just reversed, leading Rand to conclude in paragraph 30, "Consciousness, for those living organisms which possess it, is the basic means of survival." From here, Rand gives us her 3 levels of consciousness: sensation, perceptual, and conceptual levels of consciousness. Paragraph 33. A sensation is produced by the automatic reaction of a sense organ to a stimulus from the outside world. It lasts for the duration of the immediate moment, as long as the stimulus lasts, and no longer. The sense organ acts as a specific entity, like it is its own living entity, and as a whole, it has specific requirements in order to continue existing in that form. And the cells that make up that organ are individuals, too. And they likewise have specific, but different, requirements in order to continue existing in their form. The cells that receive the stimulus, let's say an eyeball sensing light. The individual living cells that take in this light have multiple but individual molecules which can interact with one single photon before needing to be replaced, and a group of them needs to be fired before it sends a signal to the cell. There needs to be a significant amount of internal signaling before the cell itself sends an electrical pulse to the brain. So each physical stimulus at the molecule is instantaneous, and then it is over. And at the higher levels of the cell, there can be some residual energy from the cell intaking or holding certain electrolytes in its cell membrane. Which brings us up to the next level, paragraph 34. A perception is a group of sensations automatically retained and integrated by the brain of a living organism, which gives it the ability to be aware not of single stimuli, but of entities, of things. The stages it takes in order to get to the visual centers of our brain is quite fascinating, as the cells that fired did so when the pattern of information was significantly large enough to warrant the creature sensing it, to need to know it was there. We, typically, cannot see a single photon, as a single photon is not going to beat us up. But a large collection of photons, we learned evolutionarily speaking, was the sun, and it is best to avoid direct contact with that collection of photons. These collections of photons come together as similar and in patterns, as they are reflected off of objects in nature, which are typically made up of one type of material, all of which share chemical and physical properties, and therefore they all absorb and reflect photons together as one. The living individuals of the cells have no personal goals and no teleological from-on-high commands or goals to work together. But as far as they take on the morphology that they do, they act to keep on living. To be extremely playful with an analogy, we could say that the cells in our eyeballs are wanting to eat takeout. They eat takeout by seeing food or pictures of food in nature and sending an order to the brain. And when that organism that those eyes are inside of eats the food, the cells of the body also get that meal from the chemical breakdown of the food, and then the eyes get to eat. Hence how we get such expressions as the eyes are bigger than your stomach. As we build up to man's level of consciousness, Rand answers her own question of why man needs ethics when cats and dogs don't. Paragraph 35. Man's particular distinction from all other living species is the fact that his consciousness is volitional. This again is a major keynote of the Objectivist Ethics. If man was a perceptual animal, we would not be having a conversation about the levels and degrees and states of consciousness. We would be in the forest, smelling each other's butts and throwing poo at other families of ape creatures. We are then introduced to Rand's definition of a concept on paragraph 37. A concept is a mental integration of two or more perceptual concretes, which are isolated by a process of abstraction and united by means of a specific definition. The human brain has a lot of memory capacity, and as such, it can store a lot of those pictures it took with the eyeballs and audio clips it took with the ears, etc. You can remember the smell, touch, taste, sounds, and images of a loved one pretty vividly. You can also remember hundreds of words and their picture associations, or feeling associations, or sound associations, etc. by the time you are 2 to 3 years old. You are collecting stores of data. And one day, it becomes possible, as the child moves from a more perceptual stage to a more conceptual stage, that these words, like dog and cat, are not just names anymore. They mean things. They have definitions. And if you want to pass biology, you need to be able to mentally move the words around into meaningful patterns, like dogs belong to canines, and cats belong to felines. That dogs look like this, in general, and cats like this, in general. And that which they share comes from an earlier species that both the canine and feline families share, etc., etc., etc. As this whole process of picking up abstractions and moving them around mentally is an activity or skill one literally needs to learn, and is not open to or available to very young children, Rand puts it in this way in paragraph 39. Reason is the faculty that identifies and integrates the material provided by man's senses. It is a faculty that man has to exercise by choice. Thinking is not an automatic function. And on paragraph 42 states, man cannot survive, as animals do, by the guidance of mere percepts. Because humans cannot survive without concepts, and since concepts are not an automatic function of one's brain or body or mind, then humans need to organize and arrange a set of guidelines to help them make long-term decisions, which gives us the standard of value in the Objectivist Ethics, and is stated in paragraph 50. The standard by which one judges what is good or evil is man's life, or that which is required for man's survival qua man. Paragraph 51 and 52 sets the ground rules. Paragraph 51. Since reason is man's basic means of survival, that which is proper to the life of a rational being is the good. That which negates, opposes, or destroys it is the evil. Paragraph 52. Since everything man needs has to be discovered by his own mind and produced by his own effort, the two essentials of the method of survival proper to a rational being are thinking and productive work. And thus Rand concludes on paragraph 59. The Objectivist Ethics holds man's life as the standard of value, and his own life as the ethical purpose of every individual man. Paragraph 61. Man must choose his actions, values, and goals by the standard of that which is proper to man, in order to achieve, maintain, fulfill, and enjoy that ultimate value, that end in itself, which is his own life. Paragraph 62. Value is that which one acts to gain and or keep. Virtue is the act by which one gains and or keeps it. The three cardinal values of the Objectivist Ethics. The three values which, together, are the means to and realization of one's ultimate value, one's own life, are reason, purpose, self-esteem, with their three corresponding virtues: rationality, productiveness, pride. Rand goes on to flesh these details out in the remainder of the speech, which you can find online at the Ayn Rand Institute's website, or in the physical copy of her book, The Virtues of Selfishness, both under the title of The Objectivist Ethics, authored by Ayn Rand. We have no real need to cover that, as we have already covered it, and she covers it differently in the essay. What is key for us to grasp here is this line of thinking. 1. People exist. 2. People have individual, independent, unreadable minds. 3. The way that people think is by a process of actively moving concepts around in their brains to form further abstract concepts so as to make thinking and talking faster. 4. This thinking process is not automatic and can be wrong. We all know someone who can't quite get a grasp on thinking and how to get good results. 5. Because we can be wrong about our choices and actions, we need a code of morals and or ethical guidelines to keep us focused and aiming at our goal. E.g., what would Jesus do? 6. Morality based on what? Based on getting that which is good for our lives and avoiding that which is bad for our lives. 7. Determined by what? Determined by the reality of life as a person on earth today with a body and mind and soul. 8. You have to love yourself to actively pursue the good in you, meaning you have to think you are deserving of the products of your positive efforts, and therefore that means that you must also produce a product that makes you happy to have produced it. To have produced a product at all, let alone one you are proud of, requires you use reason and rationality to solve a problem or to combine together elements previously unrelated, which cannot be done randomly or haphazardly, but rather requires a complete dedication to reality. And that, in essence, is the Objectivist Ethics. This video is possible thanks to contributions to the Existence University Patreon by viewers like you. Thank you.